Welcome back, all you kings, queens, and in-betweens, to another podcast episode, the This Week in Weeb podcast. We are going to be spending this whole episode talking about seasonal anime updates.
We are getting into the bread and butter of Weebness, which is anime.
Yes, and we are going to be talking specifically about the anime this season that we've been watching most religiously. One of them probably begrudging for both of us at this point.
Yeah, well,
I don't know. We'll get into it.
I'll give you my thoughts.
But I think we should start off with Hokkaido Girls, because I don't think we've talked about it as much as we've talked about the other ones. I think we've talked about Hokkaido Girls one time, but it was a long conversation.
Which I would love to talk about. I love Hokkaido Girls.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that we didn't get introduced to the third girl yet, but I think
it's in production right now. She's in sleep mode.
But I do think that they're letting this show breathe, and I enjoyed this episode from getting to see another side of our main Gyaru girl and seeing a little bit of the expectation that she puts on herself and some of the disappointment in herself, and getting to see that emotional depth that we haven't really seen a lot of yet.
So something that I had discussed with you was the fact that I very much didn't want this to become a harem anime. I wanted to actually build friendships and at most maybe fall for Fuyuki and keep the other one as a very close friend. This episode, I think, pushed the agenda for both those plans individually at the same time.
I started getting some harem vibes early on in the episode, but by the end, it kind of aligned back to what you were looking for.
I mean, I wouldn't be against the idea of it becoming a harem. I think a lot of anime is like that, and I think this has all the ingredients to be another harem anime, but I definitely was hoping for more because the characters are developed so cute, so sweet. The way that Fuyuki sincerely wants to be Akino's friend and sincerely wants to kind of develop that friendship with her, and the uncomfortable times that come up when they have to kind of discuss Tsubasa. You can see it's uncomfortable for them, and they definitely want to try and, I guess, split his time then, but at the very end, it looks like they're going to put their friendship above anything else, which I appreciate. So
I also like to see Akino being protective of Fuyuki, because she kind of got some sass thrown her way, and Akino went out and essentially threatened the guy, like, I will beat the crap out of you if you ever talk to her like that again.
Which I was surprised, and I think it's because I'm watching these animes now every week as part of my homework, and there's certain parts that definitely bleed over into my head. So when I saw the redhead guy, I thought of Red from Mr. Villain, and then to see him be a dick, I was very happy to hear Akino give him the sass and the well-deserved attitude.
So in this episode, the last episode, we got to see what Fuyuki usually does every year for Valentine's Day, which is making handmade chocolates. And Akino wanted to get in on that and wanted to make her own because she wanted to give some to Tsubasa. That's what, at least how her inner monologue was stating. And during the conversation, when Fuyuki's talking on the phone with Akino and kind of walking her through the process while she's doing her own, Fuyuki ends up spilling soy sauce all over her chocolates.
Do you remember why?
Because she didn't clean up the kitchen like she was supposed to.
Well, yes, absolutely right. Always clean up your kitchen. She had asked Akino something about Tsubasa, and it kind of freaked her out and threw her off. And in her kind of freak out, even asking that question, she knocked over the stuff and everything. But it was that question. So later on in the episode, she even brings it up. She says, I asked a friend something uncomfortable, and it's my own fault. I'm being punished for what I asked. Which, oh man, that broke my heart, because she was curious. She's a young girl who's curious about a guy that she likes and someone who's her friend potentially likes too. And yeah, it's a very sweet episode.
And you get to see that Fuyuki has a certain view of herself, and the people around her have a certain view where it's almost like a performative thing where they expected the thing that she does every year.
There's a lot of pressure on her. There's a lot of pressure on her.
And a lot of that is put on herself too, because she has a certain expectation for herself that she will be the one that everybody likes.
She doesn't want to let them down.
Yeah.
And
she got some sass from one of the other students for bringing in store-bought chocolates instead of making her own.
And then this dick goes to the other girls, do you have any chocolate? And she's right there, man. Come on. Oh man. When we see that scene in the classroom the next day and her hair's a little frazzled and everything else, and Tsubasa says, oh, her eyes are a little red, I initially thought, oh man, she was probably staying up all night making more chocolate. And then when you realize it's because she's been crying this whole time, oh man, my heart broke so many times for her.
Yeah, we get to see a scene of her actually breaking down and crying because she felt like she let everybody down. And Tsubasa, like the anime protagonist Giga Chad that he is, plays on the piano the song that Fuyuki was singing during karaoke.
She said it cheered her up, and he saw she was sad, so he wanted to cheer her up, which God bless him.
It was such a nice episode, and I think they have such a great dynamic, and part of me was worrying that they were going to lean more heavily into the harem thing. I'm not sure if they are or not, but I think this one gave me hope that they might not lean too heavily into it, because Akino, it turns out that she ended up making chocolates for both Tsubasa and Fuyuki and giving them in little friendship bag things.
Now the big question is, do you think she was going to give the big bag to Tsubasa and the tiny one to Fuyuki? But then when she saw how upset Fuyuki was, she switched them around, like, oh, these were, oh, by the way, yeah. Kind of telling Tsubasa in her kind of tsundere way, you're an afterthought, but you're my friend too. They're just, what do they call it? Friend chocos?
Yeah.
So that's what I thought. I thought that she was going to say, you know what? This is a game that I plan on winning. I'm going to give them the best. But she saw how her friend was someone who's actively working to be her friend. So in my head canon, she switched the gifts.
I think they switched them too. Part of me is kind of worried how the dynamic's going to change when they introduce the third one, because I think once you introduce the third one, then it like kind of has to be a harem. Like, are they going to have the same dynamic with all of them? Maybe it'll surprise me, but I am leery on how it's going to be once they introduce the third person, the third girl into this situation.
Based on the opening alone, I think they're just going to have I hope they're not defined by their tropes, even though we've seen them. So obviously Akino is the gamer girl and Fuyuki is the gyaro girl. And based on the opening, it looks like the robot is going to be the cosplay anime girl. And I don't know how much of a role that's going to play. Right now, it's something that we know of Akino, but it doesn't define her completely. But yeah, I think just because they want to make sure that the audience, and again, this is just my guess, that the audience has hard set what their dynamic is and how a third person is either going to upset that or change that or evolve that. Right now, as it stands, because I do love these characters so much, I kind of don't want the robot girl to show up. I'm happy.
That's me too.
I'm happy where they are. They have a great dynamic. If they're going to do the romance thing down the line as like a mini harem, so be it. But let's enjoy this kind of wholesome time where they have their friend Chacos and they're going to have the Choco party and they're going to be on the piano. And oh man, it was such a sweet episode.
I definitely think the series is pointing you towards the Fuyuki, the Suyuki pairing, because that's the one that I lean towards, but he seems to have a different view of her, like when he talks about her versus how he is with Akino.
I misunderstood what you said.
What?
When you said Tsuyuki, my head went, it's Tsuyuki. So I thought you were going for Akino and Fuyuki pairing.
Oh, I mean, I would go with that.
That's why I was like, you know, I would let it, because you know why? I don't
think they're bold enough.
One can hope, and not like any like inappropriate, like creepy way, just because again, these are two people now who didn't know each other, became friends through a shared friend, have been learning more about each other. And wouldn't it be so sweet that when they thought they're gonna have to compete against each other for some random guy who, yes, Subasa's nice guy, he's the Gigi Chat, but he's just another anime guy, they end up feeling these feelings for each other, and that friendship grows and evolves. Say, oh my god, I'm not in love with Subasa, I'm in love with Fuyuki.
I don't think we're going to get enough time away from Tsubasa for that to happen, because you'd have to have time away from the protagonist of the show.
Yeah, he's in the open. I wouldn't be mad if he was their best friend third wheel who's just like, you know what, I'm just happy to come along. So that would be fine by me.
I think that they're not going to confirm anything, at least in this season. I don't know how long the manga runs or the light novel, whatever it's coming from. I think it's a manga, but however long it's been running. It's been running from 2019 to present. So it's had 12 volumes so far. So we're going to probably get 3 or 4 volumes in the first season. So it's a third of the manga.
So it could continue past this season.
Potentially, if it does well.
From what you tell me, animes get canceled all the time.
Yeah, they do.
Oh, God. But I would hate for this to get canceled. This is so cute.
Anime is like, as an entire genre, is like Netflix. It's like Netflix made everything. It's just you were
throw
never
out the wall, see what sticks. Yeah.
But I'm enjoying the ride, and I'm going to continue watching it, and we're going to continue talking about it.
Yes, loving the Hokkaido girls, loving the art style. Anyone who says that they don't like the art style, they're not a true anime fan.
Excuse me. I just think in the first episode, it hit my eye wrong. I wasn't the biggest fan of her design, but I've gotten used to it now. I also think they've toned it down a little bit.
I'm going to try to learn that opening dance. I think that opening dance is so freaking adorable. I'm going to try and learn the whole line between the little like head down, arm side to side, the little finger hearts, the whole line. I'm going to try my best.
I have faith in you that you could pull it off.
Thank you.
So let's move on to another anime that we are both watching, and I think this is the one that we're begrudgingly watching at this point, and that is Gushing Over Magical Girls, which we haven't talked about in a little while because we had a couple episodes where we just talked about Seventh Time Loop and Mr. Villain, and we were both not caught up, or we just didn't have things to say. But
I do my homework.
Listen, hey, there was one time where I was caught up and you weren't caught up. So
yes, before I started.
But we were both watching Gushing Over Magical Girls, and there's been 2 episodes out since the last time we talked about it. In the penultimate episode, as to one that the last one that was out, that's a weird way of saying that, but whatever. 2 episodes ago, we were introduced to the third evil person,
Nero Alice.
Yes, the third member of the evil organization and her magical girl persona. And this is the episode where I thought, not only did I start to get a little bored, but it also crossed a couple of lines.
Yeah, that was the introduction of the Lolly character.
Yeah.
And
the Lolly character gets no more respect than any of the other characters, meaning you're getting content that's questionable in its legality.
I have there's so much to discuss here. I have issues with Lolly characters as a whole. I understand the whole like gothic Lolita look and stuff. That's one thing to be a look, but to actually have a very, very underage Lolly character.
I don't know if she's that much younger than the other ones.
I think she is. I think she really is. And to kind of put her in those same situations that are highly sexualized as the other characters. Not that that's any better, because none of them are of age anyways, but
it's rough.
It's rough.
It's rough. And I mean, the one thing I'll say is they do age her up in a couple of the sequences where she makes herself look like an adult.
Yes, but if you think about it, she's aged up. The way I see it is kind of just mentally, and physically everything else is still the same, which is even worse when you think about it.
Yeah, because it's an illusion. We know that it's an illusion because of the last episode.
Correct.
Where she looks like an adult, but when she sees her how she actually is, she sees her as a kid.
Yeah, but I think it's kind of like Scarlet Witch powers, but from the comic, where she's altering reality. So the way I've been seeing it is in the scope of her dollhouse, whatever reality she's choosing, that is the reality there. So if she decides to make someone a horse, they're not going to just think they're a horse. They're actually going to become a horse in that little micro universe reality. But we still know it's that person. We still know what's going on, and it made me think
of Sabrina from the original Pokemon series. You know how she had the dolls, and she would put people down into the dollhouse, but except obviously very different subject matter. But
extremely.
Yeah. So in I think it was episode 5 or 6, whatever the previous episode to the last episode was.
5. I'll check it out for you.
But we get introduced to the Lolly, and then we get a transformation sequence of the Lolly, which is not what you'd expect. And that was where I first went, I don't think we needed this. We could have skipped this for this character.
Wasn't what I expected, because I feel like in a lot of magical transformations, they will highlight certain areas so you don't see
didn't
it.
in this
They
time.
didn't. They really didn't.
Maybe they had a little bit of restraint, but that's not really saying much considering this. And it turns out that her power is that she can lure people down into her dollhouse and warp reality, like you were mentioning. And she ends up putting the 3 magical girls into a scenario where they're like a family, and one is the mother, and one is the father,
gets worse and worse.
What's it, Sulfur, or what's her name? The yellow one.
The yellow one is Sulfur. Yes.
Yeah. And she's like the baby, and she's like saying mommy and all this kind of stuff, and it's like
and they believe it. They're in character. I all highly inappropriate sexual non-consensual child things aside, I will say it was interesting to see the pink one, I forget her name, but Magenta, yeah. Magenta drop her voice a few octaves and say, well, I'm gonna hear da, da, da. And I was like, okay, well, that's an interesting character and voice choice. The thing, you have a certain kind of voice actors do certain things, like, well, no, not for this thing, you have to be like this. And to pull that off, that in of itself, I thought was very interesting.
The aesthetic was cool too, like turning
yes.
into that like upper crust nobility like man's outfit.
Yes, and her hair was like, it was still long, but it was like folded in, so it looked shorter. So there were things that I was trying to look to appreciate it more, but it was a rough episode. Yeah. It was a really rough episode.
And then I had the whole doctor examination thing. That was the first time she ages herself up,
yes.
where she makes herself look like an adult.
Yes.
This is the lolly we're talking about, and she does like some kind of medical procedure on the protagonist with that looks like it uses a turkey baster.
Yeah, because that's how medicine works.
Yeah, that's how maybe that's how medicine looks like when you're a child.
I don't think so. I don't think so at all.
I definitely think we are exploring some kind of psychological thing with the lolly character about mommy issues, because the entire next episode is all geared around mommy issues.
But before we jump into the second episode that we have to catch up on, for the first one, I think a very interesting thing was the fact that they all kind of agree that Nero Alice is the most powerful one, because of the fact that she has reality warp. Reality warping. Like, holy crap. Now, I think to kind of keep it from being too OP, it takes a lot out of her, and then she just gets knocked out afterwards, which I feel like, okay, so she's OP, but there are limits. But I think that was definitely interesting, the fact that the youngest one, the lolly one, is the one who could just change reality on a whim, and yet it's very clearly limited. So
it made me think of that Twilight Zone episode with the kid who they had to keep doing the right things, or he would send them out into the corn or whatever, or he would turn them into a Jack in the Box or something like that. It's kind of that kind of thing. Like,
it's horrible. It's horrible.
In the next episode, we get into mommy issues, because we get Magenta essentially falling into the role of being the mommy of the three girls.
So this is why I say that I don't think it was so much Nero Alice's as it was Magenta's. The way that I took it, Magenta likes to be the mom role. As soon as they mentioned that, she just went ham with it. She wanted to kind of make them lunch and say, we got to do this and kind of keep them in check. She wants to do this. And Nero Alice, there's a scene where she overhears her and she plays with her to kind of be like, I'll always be the mom and da. So the way that I interpret it, and maybe I just overthought it, but the way I overthought it was Nero Alice is aware that she's always playing the mom as the mom. So she wanted to give her the chance to not be the mom. She wanted to give her the chance to be the one that's cared for. When I saw that's the direction they were going to, where they're going to now make Magenta a child or a baby, my first thought was, dear God, don't do anything sexual with the baby. I will have to stop watching this if something sexual happens with the baby. And thankfully, they didn't. Then
it was probably the least sexual episode of the whole show, that episode.
But then they did go sexual with it when she became Magenta, but with baby tendencies.
Oh, yeah.
And then they went very sexual. And we're going to go back to what we had discussed initially about it kind of exploring certain kinks. Obviously, the whole kind of baby, adult baby, age regression, adult baby thing is a kink, again, but like the key part is adult baby. These are children. Yeah, man. And it was a lot.
This did lean more into what I was thinking about, how it is done through these magical powers that they're getting, that they're opening themselves up to things and working through things through the powers that they have.
Yes.
And I think it's not so much on the magical girl side from the powers, but from the evil side, it's self-discovery through all of this and working through all these like awakenings
for themselves
through the powers that they have.
Yeah.
And I think that there's an interesting concept buried in there that I think is getting hidden by the fact that it has so much questionable content, where it's kind of like, should I be watching this? Like, I understand what they're going for, but like it's making me uncomfortable at the same time. And I think that this could be addressed in a way that isn't as
uncomfortable.
Yeah, that isn't as uncomfortable. I feel like you could do that with, I mean, I understand why they're doing it with the age group that they're doing it in. Anime happens with the vast majority are high school people.
Yes.
It's just what the characters are in a lot of anime. And having this kind of an awakening makes more sense in the age group that they're in, but that also adds to the problematic aspect of it. But if you had like a 20 some odd year old character, it wouldn't make sense.
Well, see, I have to disagree, only because I agree that, manga and anime and these things have teenagers, high school girls, everything as like the main focal point. But as soon as you introduce the idea of not specifically a sexual awakening, awakening, but a kink awakening, or just
I guess you can see that as an adult too.
anything. I think those are things that should be explored more so by adults. I think because when you are that young, you can't process those things. You can't process those feelings and those limits, and because you yourself are developing as an adult. And that's the part that I feel like if they would have aged them up just a little bit more to be legal, at the very least, that kind of makes you more comfortable with it. So like, okay, yes, let's see where this journey goes, because they're learning more about themselves to go along. But now they're consenting, they're able to process these things. When you're a teenager, these things happen to you. It's you don't know how to take it.
There's also a difference in age of consent and things like that between here and Japan, which is age of consent in Japan, I think is 13. It might be 14.
Wait, no, hold on.
I think they raised it to 14 and there was a bunch of backlash.
Backlash?
Yeah.
Wait,
There is difference in society, and we're viewing it from outside of the norms and the, what is it?
It's crazy that I put in age of consent. The first thing comes up in Japan.
Yeah.
First thing that comes up. All right.
Because there was a news story not that long ago. I think it was like last year or the year before.
It
About
raised it. Holy crap. From 13 to 16.
to 16.
So it was 13.
Yeah. And that was recent, right?
Let's see. This was 2023.
Yeah, last year. I said it was last year or the year before. I know it was recent that I saw the thing on it. So this is the realm and the society that a lot of this stuff is coming from.
Okay, that does put everything into a different perspective for this specific culture, because it's so hard to kind of discuss these things from where we live without sounding horribly creepy. But if the age of consent up until last year, which is insane, was 13, that means that for all intents and purposes, after 13, you are an adult.
At least from an ability to form your own consenting opinions.
Opinions and actions, correct. So you are.
If you're 15, 16, and which was around the age that these girls are, I'd say about 15, 16, then you're into adulthood. If you're 16, you're at the age that they raised it to. So that's kind of where that comes from.
That explains so much. I mean, not to by any means judge an entire culture of people, but I always did wonder, why is Japan so fixated on such younger, like high school girls? And it's because for the Japanese people, according to the age of consent that it wasn't quote unquote bad because they are age of consent. I still think that you may be the age of consent, but you're still young. If a 40-year-old guy wants to get with an 18-year-old girl, yes, she can consent to it, but there's probably not gonna be a lot they can really discuss or figure out together because of the age gap.
And trying to work it into media definitely gives off those vibes like from the Transformers movie when he brought out the Romeo and Juliet thing.
Oh, I hated that so much.
So that's kind of the thing that I've always approached these kind of shows from the perspective of. Even looking at something like a Citrus, when you have a lot of the things that happen in Citrus, you have to look at it like, well, they're in high school, they're consenting adults at this point. And that came out, I think, in 2018 or 19. So it was still 13 at that point.
Well, I think the big kind of thing there for Citrus is the consent part, which like anyone consenting to anything there. Wow, that changes. I mean, for me personally, I'm sorry to say I may be closed-minded and I apologize for that, but it still feels very icky.
We're looking at it through the lens of the society we come from. So that's the only way we can. There's no way for us to look at it through a lens from a society that we didn't come up in. So if it makes us feel icky, it makes us feel icky.
Yeah.
It might not make them feel icky in Japan.
But for the most part, universally, I think that for the most part, and again, you're right, it's hard to kind of wrap your head around something that you haven't been raised with like that. But at that such young of an age, you are like, scientifically, your brain is still mostly smooth. So it's like, how are you going to be able to give the right to consent to someone who is barely understanding their feelings? They at 13, most people, not all, and it's okay if you haven't, but have entered puberty. So you're dealing with puberty, and now legally, up until last year, you were able to consent to things as your own person. That's insane.
You'd be married off at that age.
That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a holdover from old culture.
This is not a judgment on a people or a culture. Like Jeremy said, it's based on our own views that we've had growing up in the US, but it's a lot to take in.
And this is not, Gushing Over Magical Girls is not breaking new ground when it comes to this. Like, one of my favorite anime of all time, and I think it's still Elaine's favorite anime of all time, is No Game, No Life, another show that's never getting a second season. But there is some problematic aspects that happen with.
I felt so bad watching that one and liking it because it's so so bad.
Shiro has a lot more sexual framing than the lolly character in this show.
Yeah, and it made me uncomfortable. But now, if you're good, exactly, look at the approach it as, well, for the people who made the show and for the people they made it technically for, the Japanese people, she can absolutely consent to all this.
No, she was 11.
Oh.
Shiro was 11.
So we didn't even do
So even
I'm trying to give them this, and they still like, nope. We have a 13 age of consent. We're gonna go below that.
Yeah, we can assume that maybe the lolly in this one is 13, but
I assume
who knows?
nothing anymore.
All the characters in Evangelion, I think, are all exactly 13. I'm pretty sure, and because that's one that gets brought up.
Well, hold on. Though, I do think there has to be something said with how a character is written and how they're presented, because I think even in Sailor Moon Crystal, where you have these characters that were redrawn who definitely look like 20 somethings, like all of them. Yeah, I think they're like 14. Like, no 14-year-old looks like that. Come on. I mean, they're obviously gonna say that for the sake of that's their age in high school, but they're presented as adults. So that's the part where, you know, it's I don't want to say it's a gray area, because definitely not a gray area, but how they're presented is very different. You can't say that about Shiro. You can't say that about this lolly character, because they're not being presented as adults in any way whatsoever. They are very much children.
No, and honestly, in a few aspects, Shiro is worse than anything that comes out of this show because of the way that she's portrayed in the show, and she's shown in a very male gazy way. Like you can analyze film through like the male gaze, the female gaze, things like that. And something like I brought up Michael Bay. Michael Bay is very male gazy when he shows things. He's very big on following the woman while she's walking up the stairs barefoot with no pants,
pan up her legs.
And Shiro is presented that way in No Game No Life in several scenes, where the lolly character in this show isn't presented that way. We already went over the fact that they skipped through her transformation with a flash because they didn't focus on the things that they typically focused on with the other ones. But there's that certain lens where you can kind of examine it and go like, what are you trying to say with this?
Yeah.
In this one, it's kind of like, well, that's the tone for the show, so we'll tone it down a little bit, but you know, it's still got to be
not
there.
A lot.
But in a show like bring up No Game No Life, in a show like that where that's not the focal point of the show, you don't have to have that in there.
No, you know.
So you're putting that in because you want to put it in.
Yeah, No Game No Life was beautifully drawn, you know, fun story, interesting story, everything else. My biggest complaints about it were definitely Shiro's age and the incestual part of it. It's very like, we need this? And again, I didn't read the manga, so I don't know how it turned out.
I didn't either.
But I feel like the story would have been just as good without that. And I feel like that takes away from the overall story.
Yeah, it's a thing that always gets brought up when people talk about great shows that are leaving a certain legacy, and that gets brought up as like, this was a really good show for the type of genre it was trying to be, that like competition gaming kind of show. It's one of the best that they ever did, and that mars it. That's a thing that you have to bring up and go, well, if it didn't have that, it might be like one of the best gaming anime that they've ever done.
Well, I mean, for all we know, Love Stage could have been one of the greatest yaois of all time if they didn't have all the freaking assault in it. I mean,
exactly.
Yes, man. That's this age of consent, they just threw me for a loop, man. That's crazy.
So moving on from that into stuff that's
Can
a little
we move
safer.
on from that?
I mean, we have other things to talk about.
Okay.
And we have things that are safer to talk about.
Yes, hopefully.
And let's go into the palate cleanser that is Mr. Villain's Day Off.
Wholesome, doing good things for good people. Pandas abound.
Also had magical girls in it, or a magical girl.
And it was good. But I will say this before we completely move on about the Gushing Over Magical Girls. The action is progressing. They are going more to certain storylines. They explained how Sulfur became part of the team and why, even though Magenta is annoyingly sweet and positive, she needs that. So they're giving more depth into it, which is why I'm okay sticking with it for now. But yeah, everything else was very, very difficult.
I definitely could use less of the lolly character going forward. I think we're done.
Absolutely.
We got enough.
With Mr. Villain, I love Mr. Villain, but I am feeling that now kind of like it's getting a little bit hard to get over that hurdle, because while it's enjoyable, nothing is actually happening. And I think we had mentioned like 2 episodes ago that were like, oh, next episode, something's going to happen. Nothing's really happened. I don't know if anything's
going to happen. We just finished introducing the last Ranger, which is the Pink Ranger. There's a Black Ranger. We didn't introduce the Black Ranger?
We have not seen the Black Ranger, and we
mentioned
have not
in this
seen
episode.
Yes, we haven't seen the twins become one Ranger, which I think they're gonna do.
Yeah.
But yeah, they haven't done anything yet, and I'm okay with that. But I think the reason why is to kind of go into another anime, Lucky Star. Lucky Star is very much anime Seinfeld for teenage girls in high school. That's fine. They talk about nothing. They talk about random things like, hey, have you ever wondered why I did it? Oh, right. And then they just disregard it and they move on. And that's okay, because teenage girls in high school, it's not magical, it's not crazy, it's silly, but that's about it. So you expect nothing to happen. It's something like Mr. Villain. You have, and everybody says, I am the leader of the evil organization looking to dominate Earth for our homeworld. We fight the Rangers and da da da. But today's my day off. And then he kind of goes into this thing, which was great and it's nice, but I would like something to happen. You have such a great found, and they, in the little kind of end scenes where they give snippets of what's coming up, they show you the most like actiony packed parts. So you kind of hope that, oh man, next episode something's gonna go down. Nope. they lost the Pink Ranger for a bit, and the most wholesome highlight to kind of just jump ahead was when the Red Ranger came home and he's like, I did it by myself. I was like, good job, man, you got that win.
A small victory is like, I got home.
That was so sweet.
I enjoyed getting the dynamic between all the teammates within the Rangers and seeing a little bit more into there, because the entire first half of the episode was the Rangers' day off. It wasn't Mr. Villain's day off, and getting to see a little bit of how they are with each other. And I think we're going to get some final confirmation on the Yellow Ranger, which is the two kids, I'm assuming. And then we're going to meet the Black Ranger. And then once we have that, I think we'll get a handful of episodes. Like it can't be more than 3 or 4 episodes that are going to be some conflict. I think that's building up towards the end of the season, but I don't think that's really an expectation of the show. I don't think the show is really trying to do that. He's not the leader of the army, right? He's a general in the army.
He's a high-ranking general,
but he's not like the overlord.
No.
So we could get friction at some point of him building all these relationships and this and that, and then them telling him to do something that he doesn't want to do.
Well, in the opening, they have another, like definitely a villain guy, and he has like 3 underlings with him because they're seen together in multiple parts in the opening. So I'm assuming that's another potentially high-ranking person, but we haven't gone into them. We haven't met them yet, and we've seen now all the Rangers and everything else. And from the preview, it definitely does seem like the next episode is going to be another slice of lifey one, which again, I'm not against because it is wholesome, it is sweet, it's adorable, and this one had full of adorable moments. But I think with what they're working with, they could throw in, like you said, a conflict. Maybe not an earth-shattering one, but something. I cheered along with him, was happy when he got to have his panda meat buns again. He had his little card, got buy the 10 purchases. I was like, I would absolutely do that. I think what he had missed was, it says buy 10 panda themed items, not make 10 purchases, because in each purchase he bought a ton of stuff, and I was like, you could have made this a lot easier. It was probably a lot cheaper too, but he wanted the panda stuff, and
him agonizing over which one to choose.
I really thought he was gonna say, I'll just have to buy more stuff, and go back around for another round and go until he gets everything. I thought that was adorable. I thought that was really great.
The first thing I said when he picked the mug, the first thing I said to Elaine while we were watching was, doesn't he already have a panda mug?
No, he has too.
I'm pretty sure they showed him earlier on in the season drinking out of a panda mug.
There was a scene too that I feel maybe it's supposed to be more poignant, but I didn't pick up on it. While he's cleaning, the panda plush doll falls off the couch. He finishes cleaning, he comes back, he looks at it, he puts it back, and he walks away. I was like, are we supposed to know what that is? Is it something that's, like, they spent a little time like on it, but I couldn't for the life of me remember what it was from.
I don't know, maybe it was like pandas are his protective layer.
I thought maybe somebody gave it to him. Maybe he was going to talk about, this was the first panda I bought, like something, but he just,
because he's already told his origin story about why he likes pandas.
Yeah, but I don't know. He didn't say anything else about it, and that was it. I do like this series. I'm definitely happily going to continue it, but I was hoping for something a bit more than, what we've gotten, which is, I am evil, my day off, not going to do anything, see the pandas, see this panda video, clean, buy panda stuff, side story of the Rangers. And even the side story was, I lost my keychain, I found my keychain, let me run up to the guy who found it, thanks, let me get dragged back home. Like that, nothing's happened.
Yeah. I think that my prediction is that we're going to get 2, maybe 3 episodes that have plot conflict in them towards the end of the season, and that's all we're going to get. I think they're going to flesh out the characters as much as they can leading up to it, and I'm leaning towards 2, but maybe 3 episodes that are handling the main through line where it's like he gets asked to do something he doesn't want to do, or he gets in a fight with the Rangers and he struggles or something. It's hard for me to see it though, because we've lulled into such a tone where it's like I feel like I know his character, and it's kind of hard to see him in certain situations now. Like I don't know how well I could see him being an evil character and like acting all evil,
because we've seen them fight. We have seen them fight a few times, and even then the fight's like very like they clash and like
it's like Power Rangers,
and that's it, and that's all they do. So you're right in that aspect. When we see him kind of get emotionally distraught over certain things, it's funny, and it's in the scope of it being funny because of what he's getting upset about. In this one there was what was it, the cat, when he's trying to talk to the cat.
Oh, that was hilarious. That was one of my favorite scenes of the whole season so far.
And he gets so like, it's talking to me, and how dare he give me that glass? Like he gets so over the top, but it's funny.
He's thinking that the cats are another sentient species on the planet.
He's trying to talk to it. He's like, its generosity has shown me by meowing back, and it was very funny,
so good.
But I can't see that intensity translate into something actually evil now.
Yeah, like I can't see him blowing up a building or like, I don't know, just doing like acts of domestic terrorism or something. Because like, I mean, what are you doing as an evil organization? Like, what is the main day-to-day thing that you're doing besides fighting the Rangers?
And I think it's because we've gotten used to when he gives a hint about how evil he can be, it dissipates. Like when he was getting the bread and like, how thin would you like this? Like, he goes, barbarian. Like, oh wait, that means more pandas. And then he goes along with it. So I don't want to stray away from this character. I don't want to stray from what we have, but I would appreciate if something more than just, it's my day off, let me hang out my pandas, hilarity ensues kind of formula of it.
Yeah. And if you could see other members of the organization being evil, you could then see it like their conflict. But the other members of the organization don't seem like they're evil either.
No, it seemed like it's just
bureaucratic. It's like an office job.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I'm still liking it. I'm okay if it doesn't have much. I just think it'd be a little bit better with a little bit more in it. But if this is how it is, then that's fine. I have to just shift my perspective, saying this is just slice of life.
It's just what it is.
It's just what it is.
I feel like we're gonna get like, you said there was another person in the theme song that I'm blanking on, right? That they've shown. I feel like that's gonna be like a evil bureaucrat that's sent from the Overlord or whatever to see how efficient they're being, and it's gonna be like an episode that takes place in the evil organization of them going through like checklists and crap.
We need one evil organization episode.
Yeah, they're gonna be like in the headquarters, like, oh, this printer isn't evil enough, and like going through all of these.
Imagining that's like the big conflict that one of the evil people come in, like, look, we're gonna leave, but we're gonna have to take out at least one thing to show that we're still productive. We'll take out the pandas, and then that's gonna be like his conflict. Do I now side with the Rangers to protect them? Give me something silly, ridiculous that we don't really get like a resolution to, but at least we know something's there.
Yeah, I feel like we have to get something. I'm hoping the last two episodes will probably be like that, because I don't think they'll have enough to spend the next however many 5 or 6 episodes doing plot stuff. I think it's going to be slice of life up until all the characters are introduced, everything's set, and then we'll get a little bit of conflict.
I was right about the Sakura spirit person.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Wasn't the Pink Ranger, it was a ghost.
It was the spirit of the Sakura blossoms.
Yes, which is like an actual thing, right?
I don't know.
They were referencing something.
I have no idea.
Well, moving on from Mr. Villain's Day Off, we're going to move on to the last show that we're going to talk about, and that is Seventh Time Loop. Seventh Time Loop has kind of been dangling us along for a while, but we're getting steady progress, I think. I just think it's taking a long time to get there.
Yeah, I was going to say something, which is we are getting progress, but it's slow and steady, but it's extra slow. And even when I thought like, oh man, now's the time they're going to do something crazy, they did it, they walked away from it, and now it's kind of left it open for the next episode. Like, okay, we could have done this in one episode. We didn't need that middle part. The middle part was great. If we're going to focus on some example conflicts in this was the chance for them to give the conflict.
The ending of this episode was giving me vibes of Solo Leveling, and I know you haven't watched Solo Leveling yet.
I'm getting there.
Solo Leveling ends every episode on a freaking cliffhanger. Like in the middle of, right when it's about to get good, they cut the episode off. It's so infuriating.
Great.
It brings me me back to like Attack on Titan. Attack on Titan was amazing at ending episodes on cliffhangers where you wanted to watch the next episode, but I feel like that started becoming part of its charm. And I think Solo Leveling does it in a ham-fisted way where it's just like, you have to watch because you need nothing happened. Yeah. Like the thing that was about to happen didn't happen, and now you gotta watch it next time. So that's kind of frustrating with it. Like, especially last night. Last night it's like, oh, we're about to do the thing. Credits. I'm like, what?
That we've been talking about.
Yeah, we've been talking about the thing, and then we didn't do the thing. But in this, we get the conflict that, and this is spoilers, I don't know what episode we're on, 6? 4? No, we're definitely on 4.
Hold on. No, I'm saying 4.
7 time loop.
Thank you.
I think we're on episode 6.
This might be 6. I'll double check for you right now, but go ahead.
But as of episode 6, I believe, is spoilers. A lot of the episode is focused on her working out the trade deal with the Aria Trading Company, which is a trading company.
Oh, it's 5.
Episode 5? We're only at episode 5?
It seems like 6.
It seems longer. Maybe that's just because it's taking a really long time. But she met the leader of the Aria Trading Company in the first episode in her first life.
Correct.
And she went and became a merchant and all this stuff. And then she ends up reintroducing herself to him in her 7th life after she's already living in the palace.
Yep.
And she is picking them. Originally, it was under the pretense that she was picking the group that was going to handle her wedding. Isn't that the thing she asked of him?
Yes. So originally it was the wedding and to basically be like the main official trading company of
the palace,
the
or
palace
the company,
people,
or the country or whatever.
Yes.
But
he shot her down.
Yeah.
He said no.
He was pulling the Sigma male move of
talk about a Giga Chat.
Yeah, of negging her and then saying that, we choose our customers and, we just don't choose you.
And again, definitely credit to him, Chief Tully. He was telling her that the biggest thing is what you want us for, we can't give you. So why would we go into business that we don't have the stuff that's worthy of the palace and everything else? Like,
we understand as viewers going like, oh, why she's trying to work with them, because she understands them better than anybody else.
Correct. She has a bigger plan in mind.
It makes sense that she'd want to have them on her side.
She said that part of her plan is she has to first become cahoots with the trading company, and that will help her live her life long, whatever, fine.
I think she's trying to build up a bulwark for when war starts.
Okay.
That's the thing. I think she's trying to build up something to either stop the war once it starts, before it starts, or if it happens, there's systems in place
to prevent
where she has some influence. And from his perspective, it didn't really make sense that she was reaching out to him.
Why would the new crown princess / hostage say, hey, yes, mom and pop traders, I want you to be in charge of everything? They're like, what are we going to do for you?
Because they're not even a big organization. They got like 5 guys.
Yeah.
So it's weird that she would even know of them because they were like traveling in a single wagon.
Yeah, they had a little caravan, one caravan.
And B, like, we don't have wedding stuff. What do you want, lady? But
her faith in them and her desire outreached, I think, what was logistical, what would have been about it.
And we get her hatching this plan to develop her own business and then come back to them, getting them to agree to see if her new business is worth their time.
Essentially, yeah. And I could be wrong, but I believe what he had said was if he's going to get in business with someone and kind of get into this kind of negotiation deal of becoming, customers, and he realized her business prowess from their conversations, so she knows he wants to be like partners in this for all intents and purposes. In a business venture, he says, I need you to prove to me how well your mind works in regards to this stuff, and I'll give you a week. And then once we see what you have, we'll go from there.
Turns out that her business is making nail polish.
I will say, I'm not a fan because, again, I have a small little walnut brain. I'm not a fan when they overcomplicate things of introducing like politics and economy. And it's like, I just want to watch the anime, guys. But they introduced that, but they made it clear. She wants to make nail polish, but specifically, that's not her goal. Her goal was to not only employ the people of the slums to make the nail polish, but to also sell it to them, like she said. So not picking our customers, but growing our customers.
Yeah, creating your own customers, which is the logical extension of the motto that he always said about picking his own customers, which he never told her.
Yeah.
So she just pulls out that motto and he's like, what?
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess he did tell her in previous life, but in this life, he has no reason to understand why she would know that that's his personal motto. But taking it to the logical extension of if you raise up the lower class, then you have the lower class as
customers. As well.
Yeah. And it ingratiates you with them, and you have a foothold in a population that the larger trading companies ignore because they're not going to focus on the poor because the poor doesn't have money to buy their stuff.
Exactly. But if you give them jobs, they now have money. If they have money, they're now customers. And in terms of numbers, numbers, there's a lot more customers there than they are of the rich upper class people.
So I think that this is all in service of like strengthening the nation, I guess. But the only issue that I have with that is this nation seems to be the one that wins the war.
Well, I think it's also her way of just doing something as not selfless, because obviously there's a motive involved, but this is her way of doing something more altruistic and saying, you know, we can be good business people, but let's actually make a difference. And that's the part that, aside from what it does about like the medicine, which I'm sure we'll go into, but that's part that he even admits. He goes, you're right. In all my times of business, I ignored the poor people as well. I didn't really care because there was no business there, but you're right. I haven't been giving back to this community. I haven't been taking care of people. I haven't made a change or even thought about making a change that would improve the lives of many who need that to improve. What we find out is he has a sister who's sick, and she gives him the formula and how to make it that's gonna make his sister better within a year. And he
pulls that out in negotiation when he's about to turn her down again.
I thought I was on the same page that he was, where she brings it out and he's like, so you're gonna use this against me? She's like, no, you can have it. It's yours. I just want to show you that I'm here to help. I'm here to help you guys out, that I am being earnest. This is not, he's probably used as a businessman. He used to people always having an ulterior motive and bigger plans as to why they're going to do certain things. And she says, my ulterior motive is as earnest as it seems. I want to raise the people up and make their lives better, because they probably have sisters like you. They probably have people who are sick. And if we're going to help you, why not help everyone? And that breaks him. And he swears his loyalty. We will be happy to accept you. She's like, no. And I thought that was just great move on everybody's part. Everybody's playing 3D chess. It was wonderfully done.
The interesting thing that we get from this episode actually, was it this episode? The episode when she has a discussion with the prince. It was a previous episode about him being his real self. These are the things that I let you see, and that whole thing. Was it the previous episode? Or the beginning of this episode?
It was this episode, the very beginning, because we come in on her meeting at the church with the brother, and then they meet. He's like, myself there, but then he grabs her and kisses her, which I think it's because I'm watching so many.
Honestly,
well, that's the thing. I'm watching so much romance anime that I'm kind of hoping that becomes more of it, but it gets thrown away. So it's like, what's the point of the prince right now? Because we're so invested in her journey, what's going on in her plans, that while we know the prince is, for all intents and purposes, her end boss, we don't care about him. Like now in the introduction of the brother, there is definitely something there. I personally think that the brother makes him go crazy, and that's why I'm not putting all my chips on the brother and saying the brother does something to make him go crazy.
He orchestrates the war, I think.
Yes, and everything puts it on him, and his brother, the prince, is not one to back down. It's like, well, I'm here now, might as well just do it, and he just goes along with it. But the brother is obviously very conniving, very manipulative, very twisted, and he wants to start stuff, and which is why by the end she done got kidnapped.
Yep, the little brother of the prince has kidnapped our main character, and that's what we end the episode on.
This is one where I think Gushing Over Magical Girls is hard to get through because it's so problematic. There's so many things not okay with it. This one is a little bit harder than this episode because while the Tully trading scene was amazing, there's so many things building upon each other that you know are very easily resolved. If she can get herself out of a locked carriage with no problem, if she can sneak in and out of the window balcony with no problem, she's kidnapped. This guy doesn't know all the stuff that she's capable of. I guarantee she'll be out of where she's kidnapped within the first 5 minutes of the next episode.
I think so too, because the maid, I don't think it's fully turned on her.
No.
Because the maid was one of the ones that brought her there, but the maid was also somebody that she confided in. It was the first person she painted the nails of.
I wouldn't be surprised that this was part of her plan as well. She tells the maid, hey, I'm gonna be kidnapped today. So when it happens, I need you to be the one to, and then tell people, because she's like 15 steps ahead of everybody. Not because she knows the future, because this is all new stuff, but because she's had these lifetimes to kind of figure out how things work, how people think. She even wrote the letter to the prince. Hey, I got a letter from you. I don't think it's you. So I'm telling you where I'm going to be at. You should probably come at this time. Love and kisses, Lady Reach. And then she goes away and he shows up. The young bro's like, oh, brother, come on. Like she knew what was going to turn out with every step of it. And that's why she's doing so well. I would feel that'd be very appropriate if she knew she was going to get kidnapped and she's the one who told the maid, you can go ahead and do it. I'm going to be fine. Don't worry about it.
I feel like there was no precedent shown for him sending letters to her prior to that. So it's like this letter shows up from the person who just normally talks to you.
Which also, he put it like, he didn't sign his name on it or anything else, but he put the emblem of the castle. So it's like, who do you think is going to be? He was trying to be like enigmatic. Like, I know something to tell you about my brother. Who else is going to be? It's your son. signing it.
I don't know. I think it's just dragging a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that is frustrating me. But I also understand, padding.
Hey,
but
I unfortunately won't accept that. And the reason why, if Hokkaido Girls can be this many episodes in and still be a freaking enjoyable riot at every episode, they are at the top of their game and they are still going on all cylinders, then we should expect the same of all anime.
Hokkaido Girls is doing the thing that it's trying to do. This is also doing the thing that it's trying to do. It's not trying to speedrun the plot. It's trying to build her into an unstoppable bulwark of all the crap that she's good at. It's trying to show off how good she is at the things that she does, and that's what it's showing off, and I don't think that's what we want out of it. I think we want more of the plot, and it's giving us power fantasy.
Well, I mean, similar thing, because we get introduced, if you recall, not that long ago, but we get introduced to her and to this anime as a very big action sequence, and they're fighting and everything else fine, and we've seen her fight a few times, like, oh man, even when they're dancing, like, oh man, they're dancing. So there's snippets of where things are heightened, where things are a bit more intense, and now we're kind of getting all the cutscene, all the dialogue, all the text boxes. Just, oh man, come on, I know it's gonna happen. Let's just
playing Final Fantasy VII.
I'm just trying to get through because I know it's gonna be good. I have a very strong. It's gonna be good. You just have to get there.
Just gotta get there.
And like I said, I'm sure when we get to the part where she figures a way out, or she shows that she already planned, I'm like, oh man, that's so good. I'm gonna enjoy it, absolutely. But we probably could have put that in this episode and then just move things along.
I just need them to address the fact that they're looping just one time, or that she's looping one time, like in the actual plot.
How mad would you be if they don't explain why they're looping?
We
say there as if we're the both, but her.
I don't think that they'll explain. I mean, I think we both have a belief that they're both looping, but Elaine even posited a belief that she thinks the little brother is looping.
But I don't trust Elaine. She doesn't like Hokkaido Girls. So.
Elaine is staring at us in our recording section. So,
Elaine,
but
didn't see you there.
I honestly am starting to believe that we're not going to get an explanation by the end of the season.
She doesn't listen to this podcast, does she?
Huh?
Does she listen to the podcast?
I don't know. Oh. She's listening to it now being recorded live.
I may have made mistakes.
I don't think we're going to get an explanation by the end of the season on why they're looping.
I'm going to be very upset if they don't.
I don't think
I'll be upset. At the very least, give me the hint as to why. Like, some character comes in and says, oh, you're this character from this thing. Yeah. It's like, so how's it your second time around? What? At least give me that. So I know it's because of someone else.
I don't know how long this has been going on. Not very long. Like, because she normally lasts 5 years before the war starts. Yes. And we have not jumped that far.
No.
So
not even a little bit.
I don't think in the next 6 episodes or however many, I don't think we're going to jump to the war.
No, I think at the very least, I'm going to say by the end of the series of this season, at least we were going to find out why she's looping.
I think you have more faith than I do.
Faith,
I think we may get to a point where we understand the dynamic that's going to be going forward between her and the prince. I'm comparing it to Sugar Apple Fairy Tale. Sugar Apple Fairy Tale was the last. I can't say that. Sugar Apple Fairy Tale.
That's a made-up anime.
Nope, it was from last year. Okay. It was the last shoujo anime that was really focused on shoujo that we watched. And by the end of the season, we essentially got to the point where we understand what the dynamic between the main girl and the main guy is, and that's it. We got a culmination. There was a competition or whatever it was. It doesn't matter. Yeah. But that's the foundational point that we got to. We got to that. This is what they mean to each other. This is their relationship going forward. This is the things that they're willing to do to protect each other or whatever. And that's what we laid the foundation. And if it ever gets a second season, that's where we're going to be jumping off from. And I feel like that's where we're going to get to. We're going to know who the bad guys are. We're going to know what their relationship with each other is, or at least what they want us to think their relationship is. And then that's going to be the foundation going forward.
I think the brother kills the father
and blames it on the brother.
The world as a whole blames the brother, and he kind of like, well, they see me as a villain. Budget, I'm gonna be the villain, just because that's something that she even mentioned. She goes, oh, I know he turns ill because at some point he kills his father, so why wouldn't he kill his mother? And I think that's gonna be the thing. And I think what they're gonna find out is that he killed his mother like in childbirth, but then that would make sense because they would have a second brother. So,
yeah, that would make sense. I feel like it could be one of those things like he killed our mother metaphorically, like something happened that drove her to die in some way or another. Like, and it's
She didn't want him to become part of the army, and now he's like the best killer, and it broke her heart to the point that she died.
Yeah.
She lost the will to live.
Died of a broken heart. Yeah, he blames himself, so he lets it go on, the rumor that he killed his mother, because he blames himself, even though he didn't actually do it. That kind of a thing. But I do definitely think that the brother is probably the instigator for the war, because he's instigator for all the plot that's happened so far. Any plot thing that's happened, he's been instigating it. So
is it Theodore?
Yes. So I don't know, we'll see where it goes. I'm gonna stick around on it, but like it's wearing my patience.
Yeah,
I will say that.
Yeah. It's no Hokkaido girls.
It's no Hokkaido girls, and it's kind of in the same way that Mr. Villain is wearing my patience. But I still enjoy the ride on Mr. Villain more.
It's wholesome and fun enough, and kind of makes you laugh. Like, you know what? Okay, fine. Like you're testing me, but I'm allowing this. With 7 Time Loop, is like, you're testing me, and you need to get together soon.
You need to get your stuff together.
We are now past the point of no return, so I'm invested, but reluctantly invested.
I'm reluctantly invested.
As a quick thing, this is the other villain who I think is a villain from Mr. Villain in the opening scene. He looks evil, and he looks extra evil, so I would imagine that he's gonna start some stuff. He looks like a white-haired Mr. Villain.
Yeah, he looks like the same like species or whatever. Like if they're different species, he looks like the same kind of appearance as his evil version. Yeah. But something that I never begrudgingly watch, listen to, or partake in is this Week in Weeb podcast.
My favorite. I love it so much.
Right? It's always the perfect pacing. It always gets right to the
good
point.
Characters, plot development, nothing problematic, and everybody consents here. So we're off to a good start.
We're off to a great start. Comment down below and let us know if there's anything we could be doing better. You know,
we can always improve. We are creatures meant to evolve.
Yes, we are always open to any kind of suggestions, criticism, anything like that. Opening that up to the internet is a little scary, but go ahead, internet. Let us know what we should be doing better.
Was it you who told me a great quote? And if it wasn't you, I'm going to just give it to you anyway, so enjoy. Honesty without tact is cruelty.
That I don't think was me.
Okay, well, I'm going to say it's you. Okay. Basically, yes, let us know we can do better, but you can be nice about it. I mean, just, you know, hey guys, like, oh sure, why not? We'll figure it out.
Well, watch us figure it out.
Yes.
After you subscribe to the channel and ring that bell so you see our future content.
Share the video.
Share the video. Let everybody know that it's going on and build the community. Just like Riche is trying to build her bulwark.
be our chief Tully and help us achieve our dreams.
Yes. Raise up the masses around you and build your own audience. Yes. Buy nail polish.
If this video gets, what's a good number for starting people?
For starting people? I don't know.
For views.
1,000 views.
If this video gets 1,000 views, I will do one of our toy unboxings with very nicely done nail polish nails. Happily.
Take them up on that, man.
Let's go.
Let's get to 1,000 views. And let us know what color you want them to wear.
Hey, I have no problem with that, man. I will go the brightest pink, the most neon yellow. I will even pay for the fancy ones where they put like dots and chevrons on your nail. We'll do the whole gradient thing. Whatever you want, we'll do it.
It's gonna be nice. I want to see this, so get it to 1,000 views.
1,000 views, guys.
Subscribe and ring that bell so you know what's up, and we'll catch you in the next one.
All right, take care.